إعلان مهم.
重要提示
Important announcement.
Message important.
Важное объявление.
Anuncio importante.
يرجى من المتحدثين الكرام إلقاء بياناتهم بسرعة معقولة لضمان ترجمة فورية وافية وعالية الجودة.
为了帮助口译准确完整传递发言信息，请代表发言时语速不要过快。
Speakers are kindly reminded to deliver their statements at a reasonable pace to ensure complete and quality interpretation.
Il est rappelé aux orateurs qu'ils doivent présenter leur déclaration à un rythme raisonnable afin de garantir une interprétation complète et de qualité.
Напоминаем ораторам, что для обеспечения полного и качественного устного перевода необходимо поступать в умеренном темпе.
Se ruega a los oradores que pronuncien sus declaraciones a un ritmo razonable para garantizar una interpretación íntegra y de calidad.
Yes.
Excellences, distingués collègues.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, I would like to call to order the 33rd meeting of the 59th session of the Human Rights Council. We will resume the consideration of draft resolutions and decisions. I have been informed that the resolutions ready for consideration during this meeting will be projected on the screen. Oh, there we have it. All budget program implications are available on the extranet.
Consider draft proposal L12 entitled The Contribution of Development to the Enjoyment of All Human Rights. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of China to introduce the draft text.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to introduce on behalf of the core groups draft resolution L12 as orally revised. In the context of the 80th anniversary of the UN and the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration Platform for Action, China, together with the core group Cameroon and Pakistan and other core sponsors, again proposed a draft resolution on the contribution of development to the enjoyment of all human rights. We hope that this resolution will help to build consensus and encourage all parties to work together to revitalize a true multilateralism to achieve sustainable development and promote the protection of all human rights with the future of humankind and the well-being of all countries in mind. The draft resolution reaffirms that development, peace, security, and human rights constitute the three pillars of the UN, and that development helps to improve people's well-being and makes an important contribution to the enjoyment of all human rights. It welcomes the adoption of a series of comprehensive, far-reaching, and people-centered sustainable development goals in the Pact for the Future, expresses concern that protectionist measures and inward-looking economic policies exacerbate the vulnerability of developing countries, and that Unilateral economic measures not in line with international law and the UN Charter hinder the full realization of economic and social development. It welcomes all parties to promote an open economy and give full play to the greater positive effects of globalization and call for extensive international cooperation to achieve high-quality development while respecting human rights and fundamental freedoms. China, together with the core group, held several informal consultations in a transparent, open, and constructive manner and exchanged in-depth views with all parties through bilateral channels, fully taking on the reasonable revision of all parties. After submitting the text, we still maintained communication with all parties and made oral revisions. I'd like to reiterate that human rights are universal, indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated, and all kinds of human rights should be promoted in a comprehensive and balanced manner. The draft resolution reflects and follows the above principles. I hope that all parties will support the adoption of this resolution by consensus. I believe that this will help us, inspired by the spirit of Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the VDPA, jointly promote sustainable development and continue to move towards the goal of human rights for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are 28 additional co-sponsors, and I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make general comments. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Cuba.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and good morning. Cuba would like to thank China, Cameroon, and Pakistan for the presentation of the draft resolution L12 on the contribution of development to the enjoyment of all human rights. Our delegation takes pleasure in co-sponsoring this text. Here, 40 years ago, we adopted the United Nations Declaration on the Right to Development. In 1986, we would like to reiterate that the greatest contribution of development to the enjoyment of human rights is social transformation to build more fair, more inclusive, and more equal societies. Draft Resolution L12 includes fundamental components that reflect historical convictions of Cuba in the area of human rights. Among them, the recognition of the key role that the state plays in promoting inclusive and sustainable development. We particularly appreciate the call to overhaul the international financial architecture, as well as challenging economic conditionalities imposed by financial institutions, international financial institutions, thereby undermining the sovereignty of countries of the South, and it have an impact on the effective enjoyment of human rights. Rejection unilateral coercive measures is one of the fundamental contributions of this initiative. Cuba reiterates its strong demand that these calls, which run counter by their nature to the UN Charter and international law, be eliminated. They represent a true, ongoing obstacle to national development. Mr. President, Cuba supports the adoption by consensus of draft resolution L12, and we encourage all member states of the Council to back this initiative, which reaffirms development as a right and as a path to move towards a fair, more equal, and world order, one with solidarity. Thank you.
The floor to the distinguished representative of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ethiopia would like to thank the core group members, China, Cameroon, and Pakistan, for their leadership, commitment, and inclusive approach in presenting this timely and impactful resolution on the contribution of development to the enjoyment of all human rights. Ethiopia is also proud to have joined as a co-sponsor of this resolution, which aligns with our national development agenda and reflects our unwavering commitment to the indivisibility, interdependence, and mutually reinforcing nature of development in all human rights. This resolution comes at a moment of historic convergence marked by the upcoming 80th anniversary of the United Nations, the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and renewed global momentum driven by the Pact for the Future, the Declaration on Future Generations, and the Global Digital Compact. These milestones remind us that the three pillars of the United Nations, peace and security, development, and human rights are not separate, but deeply interlinked and mutually reinforcing. Ethiopia reaffirms that inclusive and sustainable development is both a means and an end to the full enjoyment of all human rights. Development must be people-centered, equitable, and grounded in international solidarity, especially in support of the most vulnerable, including least developed countries. We particularly welcome the resolution's strong emphasis on the eradication of poverty in all its forms and dimensions, the urgent need to reform the international financial architecture to better reflect the voices and priorities of developing countries, and the strengthening of international cooperation and targeted technical assistance, especially for the least developing nations. We also value the recognition of the human rights economy as an innovative framework to advance justice, equality, and sustainability. Ethiopia reaffirms its deep and long-standing commitment to the right to development, which remains central to our national vision for inclusive growth, social equity, and the full realization of all human rights. Mr. President, in closing, Ethiopia urges all delegations to support this important resolution by consensus. At a time of unprecedented global challenges and equally unprecedented opportunities, this resolution stands as a...
I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Iceland.
Mr. President, Iceland reaffirms its commitment to a human rights-based approach to development, prioritizing the fulfillment of human rights in all development efforts and shifting the focus from charity to the obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. Through empowerment, participation, and accountability, development initiatives are able to address inequalities and empower persons in marginalized and vulnerable situations to claim their rights. Iceland notes that states have the responsibility to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights for all persons within their territory or who may be subjected to their jurisdiction, control, or influence. We welcome the effort of the core group to strive for a consensus adoption. We remain, however, concerned about references to vague concepts in the text. Further, we regret that the draft resolution fails to adequately incorporate well-established language on the link between human rights and development, most notably as outlined in the Vienna Declaration and Programme of Action. On the topic of development, this Council should explicitly support a human rights-based approach. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Switzerland.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, Switzerland agrees with the opinion of the authors of Resolution L12. The contribution that development has to the enjoyment of all human rights. The development can contribute to the enjoyment of human rights, that is. It is also important to note the Declaration, the Programme of Action of 1993, which states that while development promotes the enjoyment of all human rights, the lack of development cannot be used as an excuse to limit human rights that have been internationally recognized. We regret that this resolution does not include that clarification. Further, in the current context of limited financial resources, we further regret that this draft resolution has, in its operational paragraph number 12, some expenditures similar to the last iteration of this resolution. Thank you.
Representative of Bolivia.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bolivia would like to thank the main group of China, Cameroon, Pakistan, and others who are proposing this document. Thank you for your work. Before us, we have draft L12 with its first operational paragraph, where it reiterates the significant contribution that development has to the enjoyment of all human rights. And it mentions that the three basic pillars of the United Nations peace and security, development, and human rights are the pillars of the United Nations system and the foundation of collective well-being. These three pillars are interrelated and they strengthen each other. Appreciating this and bearing in mind the resolutions that this Council decides on, maintaining the prudent balances and respecting the principles of universality, inalienability, indivisibility, and interdependence of all human rights, individually and collectively, given that it is now time to call upon all states to focus their attention on promoting inclusive, sustainable development so as to allow for better enjoyment of human rights, to achieve gender equality, and to promote equal opportunities for development. To do this, among a harmonious set of common responsibilities and duties, the draft resolution calls for continued mobilization of cooperation for development resources and assistance for states, particularly developing and least developed countries, as well as identifying the need to pursue deeper reforms of the international financial architecture, and that in order to raise the voice and the level of representation of developing countries. Additionally, it urges states to refrain from promoting unilateral economic measures that are not aligned with international law. Before us, we have the draft that welcomes with satisfaction and acknowledges the efforts that have been made by states, international organizations, and other interested parties in eradicating poverty. And as a result, it calls for stepping up the level of cooperation and international exchanges to eradicate poverty. Mindful of these challenges, my country can show how economic development is not the only success of the community productive economic model. There's also the reduction of extreme poverty and of inequality, in addition to increasing the life expectancy, levels of social inclusion, access to resources and services such as education, health, means of production, and infrastructure. Which is why my delegation will co-sponsor this draft and ask members of this council to adopt it by consensus. Thank you.
I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Kenya.
Thank you, Mr. President. Kenya wishes to extend its sincere appreciation to the core group for their leadership and commitment in sponsoring this important resolution on the contribution of development to the enjoyment of human rights. We commend their tireless effort in fostering constructive dialogue and consensus around this critical issue. The resolution reaffirms an undeniable link between sustainable development and full realization of all human rights. We are pleased to support this initiative, which aligns closely to our national priorities and international obligations. The resolution is timely as it affirms the contribution of development to the enjoyment of all human rights and recognizes that sustainable development is not only a catalyst, but also a foundation for the realization of human dignity, equality, and justice. Kenyan government firmly believes that development and human rights are mutually reinforcing. Our constitution affirms the right to every person to enjoy the highest standard, possible attainable standard of health, education, housing, and a clean and healthy environment. These rights are not abstract ideals, but are concrete commitments that we continue to pursue through inclusive national policies and sustainable development programs. Kenya underscores the urgent need for deeper, more inclusive reforms on the international financial architecture to achieve the full vision of the 2030 Agenda, eradicate poverty, advance the realization of all human rights in its imperative that the global financial system becomes a more equitable, representative, and responsive to the specific needs and challenges of developing countries. Mr. President, Kenya wishes to express concern over the growing trend of protectionist measures and inward-looking economic policies that are increasingly shaping the global trade and financial landscape. While recognizing the sovereign right of states to adopt national policies, but stress that such measures can often exacerbate the economic vulnerabilities of developing countries, restrict access to market, disrupt supply chains, and limit opportunities for growth, employment, and sustainable development. These trends carry significant adverse repercussions on enjoyment of human rights, particularly the right to food, health, education, and decent work. In this regard, we call for open, fair, inclusive, and rule-based trade and financial system that support equitable development and foster an enabling environment for the realization of all human rights, especially in the global south. In conclusion, Kenya calls all member states to support a holistic approach to human rights, one that embraces development as an essential pillar for the realization of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. I thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I know we want to get to the end of the session, but still, can you please keep in mind the speed of your declarations is important for translators to be able to, interpreters to be able to provide the quality of the service they like and we need. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sudan.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. نشكر مجموعة النواب.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would like to thank the core group for having presented this draft resolution, which asserts how important development is in promoting the respect of human rights. And it highlights the indivisibility of these rights and how rights are mutually reinforcing. The fight against poverty is essential in development policies, and this text has recalled the factors that contribute to weakening the state's commitments to their obligations in the fight against poverty. Among them, there are unilateral coercive measures, as well as additional restrictions which have negative effects and which sap at the efforts to develop. We call for this draft resolution to be adopted by consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are PBIs for this draft proposal. The PBIs amount to a total of $156,200. This amount will need to be added to the budget. I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make explanations of votes before the vote on draft proposal L12 as orally revised. I see I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Spain.
Señor Presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to speak on behalf of EU member states that are members of the Council. This explanation of position has agreed by the EU as a whole. We thank the core group for presenting L12 Rev 1 as orally revised on the contribution of development to the enjoyment of all human rights. We welcome the efforts of the core group to improve their initial draft and significantly revising the text to address some of our concerns. We attach great importance to the international rules-based order and universally agreed instruments and documents, and we remain concerned that the draft before us does not go far enough to uphold the decades-long, consensual, and carefully crafted balance between human rights and development. The balance between development and human rights was expressed the most clearly in the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action, and I quote, "While development facilitates the enjoyment of all human rights, the lack of development may not be invoked to justify the abridgment of internationally recognized human rights." Unquote. The VDPA also states that human person is the central subject of human rights and fundamental freedoms. These universally agreed references are regrettably missing from L12 Rev 1. In the same vein, the EU strongly rejects the inclusion of references to undefined concepts such as, quote, shaping our shared future, unquote, or, quote, people-centered, unquote, or, quote, high-quality development. As far as better life is concerned, we understand the paragraph as stating that the enjoyment of all human rights by all improves the life of all persons. We recall that the state, as the primary duty bearer, has the obligation to ensure the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of all human rights for all. We emphasize that civil society participation in the achievement of gender equality are essential components of inclusive, sustainable development. We have constructively engaged with the core group with the aim to seek consensus around this very important issue. And we appreciate the core group's willingness to seek consensus as well. The changes made significantly improved the text and addressed some of the concerns we had when this initiative was last presented. We are convinced that, regarding development, this Council should firmly and unequivocally stand on the side of human rights-based approach to development. And while we continue to believe that the Council should not allow any ambiguity in the linkage of development to human rights, we reaffirm our commitment to a human rights-based approach to development, and the EU can join the consensus on the text before us. Thank you.
I'll give the floor to the distinguished representative of Japan.
Thank you, Mr. President. We thank the core group for its efforts in preparing this resolution. Japan fully recognizes the importance of development as one of the three pillars of the United Nations, together with security and human rights. When this resolution was last discussed at the 56th session, Japan voted against it. This was because we considered the text to be unbalanced as a Human Rights Council resolution. It devoted many paragraphs to emphasizing the importance of development without referring to human rights. When it referred to human rights, it did so in the context of development being necessary to promote human rights. Thus, it appeared to us that the resolution was positioning development as a prerequisite for the promotion of human rights, which is not in line with our basic standpoint. Moreover, some terms used in the text were not agreed terms or terms widely used in human rights documents. During the informal consultations in this session, Japan exchanged views with the core group to again convey such concerns about this resolution. As a result, not a few of our views were reflected in the text this time, although there remain some points of disagreement with the core group, such as the use of the term shared future. We commend the core group's sincere efforts during these consultations to reflect our views as much as possible. We also welcome the core group's explicit explanation of its position that it does not consider development to be a prerequisite for promoting human rights. In view of such flexibility and sincere efforts on the part of core group, Japan has decided to join the consensus despite some differences of opinion on certain parts of the text. Going forward, we would like to continue discussion with the core group while explaining our views on the points that we are unable to discuss fully this time or reach agreement on this time. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I don't see other requests for the floor. Is there a request for a vote? I see none. May I take it that draft proposal L12 as orally revised may be adopted without a vote? It is so decided. Thank you. The Council will now consider draft proposal L24 Ref 1 entitled Accelerating Efforts to Eliminate All Forms of Violence Against Women and Girls, Prevention through the Fulfillment of Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Canada to introduce draft proposal L24 Ref 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of 59 co-sponsors from all regional groups, I am honored to introduce draft resolution L24 Rev 1 as orally revised, accelerating efforts to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls, prevention through the fulfillment of economic, social, and cultural rights. We held 9 open and transparent informal consultations and engaged in numerous small group and bilateral meetings to resolve outstanding issues. Canada listened attentively and heard the views of all cross-regional delegations, and we believe we worked constructively and in good faith up until the end. The resolution before you is balanced and reflects the diversity of views that we heard. We thank all delegations and civil society for their constructive participation. We regret, however, that despite our best efforts to take on a wider range of proposals, there are a number of amendments that have been presented. Mr. President, violence against women and girls, including sexual and gender-based violence, remains one of the most pervasive violations of human rights, impacting 1 in 3 women and girls worldwide. Yet this violence is not inevitable, it is entirely preventable. The resolution before this Council places critical focus on the comprehensive realization of economic, social, and cultural rights to prevent violence against women and girls. This action-oriented resolution urges states to address the root causes of sexual and gender-based violence, ensure the participation of women and girls in the development of legislation, policies, and programs, strengthen women's economic autonomy and address the disproportionate burden of unpaid care work performed by women and girls, promote public spaces that are free from violence, engage men and boys in preventing violence as agents and beneficiaries of gender equality, and ensure that victims and survivors have access to remedies and justice, and to end impunity and hold perpetrators accountable. Among others, these comprehensive measures represent our collective commitment to advancing gender equality and building a more equitable world for all women and girls. This resolution is a call for all states, including for my own country of Canada, to do better. The resolution also includes the mandate renewal of the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls for an additional 3 years. Mr. President, we are pleased to have been able to resolve 6 of the amendments tabled against the resolution. We call upon members of the Council to adopt Resolution L24 Rev 1 as orally revised by consensus, and in doing so, to demonstrate their strong commitment to eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the representative of Bahrain on behalf of the Group of Arab States to introduce written amendments L27, L28, and L29 to draft proposal L24 Rev 1 as orally revised.
I have the honor to take this floor on behalf of the Group of Arab States to introduce 3 amendments, L27, L28, and L29, to the draft resolution L24. These amendments, let me start with L27, which concerns preamble of paragraph 20 and 24 on operative paragraph 4I. This amendment aims to replace the controversial and non-consensual references to comprehensive sexuality education, which language that has been agreed by the General Assembly since 2017, which remains consensual to this date. Amendment 28, which addresses the reference to sexual and reproductive rights in preamble paragraph 22 and operative paragraph 4K. This amendment seeks to ensure that the language of the resolution remains fully consistent with the internationally agreed legal laws by replacing the references to sexual and reproductive rights with wording drawn from Article 12 of the International Covenant on the Economic and Social Cultural Rights. Finally, the Amendment 29 concerns the references to the so-called right to the bodily autonomy in paragraph, which is preamble of paragraph 25 and operative paragraph 4K. The phrase right to bodily autonomy does not appear in any UN human rights treaty, including CEDAW, CRC, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the ICCPR and the ICESCR. That's why we feel, Excellency, that the amendments we are putting forward today are not meant to weaken the text. On contrary, they are indeed to strengthen it by preserving consensus and ensuring that the resolution remains consistent with the internationally agreed terminology. They reflect our shared comments to ending violence against women and girls. We submit these amendments in constructive spirit, and we kindly call all the delegation to support them and vote in their favor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I understand that amendments L31 to L36 have been withdrawn by the sponsor. I will now turn to the distinguished representative of Mexico to seek the views of the sponsors on written amendments L27, L28, and L29. You have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, President. On behalf of the sponsors of this resolution, I would like to inform the Council that we do not accept any of the amendments. Therefore, we call for a vote on each of the amendments, and we will vote note against them. We urge all members of the Council to vote against the amendments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I understand that the sponsors do not agree with the proposed amendments. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are 15 additional co-sponsors to draft proposal L24 Rev 1 as orally revised. This is reflected on e-delegate. I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make general comments on draft proposal L24 Rev 1 as orally revised. and on written amendments L27, L28, and L29. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Spain.
Muchas gracias otra vez.
Thank you once again, President. I have the honour once again to speak on behalf of the EU member states that are members of the Human Rights Council. This general comment has been agreed by the EU as a whole. The EU thanks Canada for presenting this resolution and for leading on this file. We welcome the renewal of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur. The EU is committed to prevention and elimination of all forms of violence against all women and girls. We are deeply concerned by the continued prevalence of violence against women and girls in all its forms and manifestations worldwide. We emphasize that violence against women and girls violates and impairs their human rights and therefore is completely unacceptable. We welcome the resolution's emphasis on prevention as a crucial step towards eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls. Institutional and structural discrimination, including entrenched patriarchal systems and harmful gender norms, economic inequalities, and systemic racism, perpetuate unequal power dynamics and undermine women's dignity and their bodily autonomy. Addressing these root causes is essential for significantly reducing gender-based violence and in order to achieve a sustainable drop in its prevalence and to break the cycles of abuse for future generations. We recognize the crucial importance of the objectives set out in this resolution and we support its adoption. The presented amendments would constitute a step backwards on the advances made over the past 30 years regarding the human rights of women and girls. We will therefore vote no to the presented amendments to the text and call upon other Council members to do the same. Full Council support for this resolution, as presented by Canada today, will send a clear and unified message that this Human Rights Council is ready to take a strong stand against all forms of violence against all women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Costa Rica.
Thank you, President. Costa Rica would like to thank Canada for the presentation of this resolution on a crucial topic, which regards speeding up efforts in order to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls and the prevention through the realization of their economic, social and cultural rights. We support the renewal of the special mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the elimination of violence against women and girls. Women and girls face multiple and interrelated and systemic forms of discrimination on a daily basis. This undermines their ability to fully enjoy their human rights and fundamental freedoms. It also hinders their full and effective and meaningful participation as well as their inclusion and leadership in public and private life. This, in turn, is an impediment to gender equality and to the empowerment of all women and girls. Draft L24 Rev 1 offers a comprehensive approach to the prevention of violence against women and girls, including sexual violence and gender-based violence. It aims to achieve this through their full attainment of economic, social and cultural rights. Healthcare, housing, decent work, social security, and economic participation not only help to empower women and girls, but they also transform the structures that perpetuate violence. Therefore, it is essential for states to adopt and implement inclusive public policies that promote the full realization of the economic, social, and cultural rights as a means of prevention, detection, and elimination of violence against women and girls. Costa Rica would therefore like to reaffirm its commitment to the protection and promotion of all human rights, and therefore we have co-sponsored this text. Finally, we do welcome the open and constructive and flexible approach shown by Canada during the 9 informal meetings and negotiations which took place in a very short time frame, and Canada's readiness to hold bilateral meetings in order to achieve a robust but balanced text. We regret that despite the many efforts made by Canada to find solutions that would reflect the concerns of certain states, there have been amendments presented which run counter to the spirit of the resolution. Therefore, we encourage all members of the Council to support draft resolution L24 Rev 1 by consensus and to reject all the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Albania.
Thank you, Mr. President. Albania expresses its sincere appreciation for constructive leadership and dedicated efforts undertaken by Canada to facilitate consensus on the draft resolution addressing violence against women and girls. We remain deeply concerned that violence against women and girls continues to be one of the most prevalent, devastating human rights violations globally. It profoundly affects individuals, communities, and societies, hindering sustainable development and peace. We underscore that prevention must be central to our collective efforts to address violence. The full realization of economic, social, and cultural rights is essential in addressing the root causes of violence against women and girls. When women and girls have unimpeded access to quality education, universal and comprehensive health coverage, secure and adequate housing, decent employment opportunities, and equal participation in cultural and social life, their vulnerability to violence and discrimination significantly diminishes. This resolution embodies a critical, holistic, and right-based approach, promoting gender equality and empowering women and girls in all aspects of life. Albania urges all members of the Council to unite in support and adopt this resolution by consensus and to vote against all amendments, demonstrating our shared commitment to eliminate violence against women and girls. I thank you.
Merci. Je donne la parole.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of France. Thank you, President. France would like to thank Canada for the presentation of draft resolution L24. Humanitarian crises, conflicts, climate change, poverty, discrimination, sexual and gender-based violence, obstacles to rights. Faced with these realities, women and girls are the first victims. France stands ready to act, and in December 2022, with the Netherlands, during the 77th session of the General Assembly, we promoted a bold resolution on violence against women. 30 years on from the adoption of the Beijing Declaration Programme of Action and 25 years on from Resolution 1325 of the Security Council, we have made progress, but we need to stay on track. The elimination of all violence against women and girls, including sexual and gender-based violence, be these online or offline, as well as the promotion of the sexual and reproductive rights and the right to dispose of one's own body as a structural component, is absolutely essential. Equality between men and women, all these are causes that France champions in its feminist policy. So we therefore fully support this draft resolution, and we are proud to co-sponsor it, and we commend Canada's efforts during the informal consultations, which were carried out in a spirit of dialogue with all delegations. Respect for women and girls' rights, that is to say more than half of humankind, and the fight against all forms of discrimination and violence against them should be able to garner consensus within this Council. France therefore calls on all members of this Council to support this draft resolution and to reject all the amendments. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of South Africa.
Thank you, Mr. President. South Africa supports Resolution L24 as orally revised, which seeks to accelerate efforts to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls through the fulfillment of economic, social, and cultural rights by renewing the mandate of the Special Rapporteur. We commend Canada for championing this important initiative. This resolution aligns with South Africa's constitutional commitment to gender equality and the protection of all individuals from violence as enshrined in Section 9 of our Constitution, which guarantees equality and prohibits discrimination on the basis of gender, and Section 12, which affirms the right to freedom and security of the person, including the protection from violence. Violence against women and girls is a manifestation of historical and structural gender inequality that undermines their dignity, safety, and full participation in society. It is deeply concerning that this violence persists in various forms, including physical, sexual, psychological, economic, and technology-facilitated violence, and disproportionately affects women and girls in vulnerable situations such as those living in poverty, conflict settings, or facing intersecting forms of discrimination. For this reason, South Africa appreciates the resolution's emphasis on addressing the root causes of violence, including poverty, inequality, and harmful gender norms. Addressing the feminization of poverty, ensuring equal access to education, healthcare, decent work, and social protection, and promoting women's economic empowerment are essential to breaking the cycle of violence and achieving gender equality. We commend the resolution's recognition of the importance of universal access to education, including evidence-based comprehensive sexuality education, and the transformative potential of education in empowering women and girls to claim their rights and prevent violence. Similarly, ensuring access to sexual and reproductive health services and information is vital for protecting women's and girls' bodily autonomy and addressing the root causes of gender-based violence. The resolution rightly highlights the need to address structural and systemic barriers, including patriarchal systems, harmful gender norms, and discriminatory attitudes, which perpetuate violence and inequality. It is also underscoring the importance of engaging men and boys as allies and agents of change. Mr. President, we therefore urge members of this council to adopt L24 by consensus as orally revised. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Cyprus.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would like to thank Canada for the work carried out on this important resolution. The equal enjoyment of economic, social, and cultural rights is fundamental to sustainable development, democratic resilience, as well as the prevention of instability and crises within societies. At the same time, it is essential to ensure equality between all men and women and to prevent violence against women and girls, including sexual and gender-based violence, without equal and adequate access to quality education and healthcare, food, water and sanitation, social security and housing, societies become fractured and grievances deepen. In such situations, women and girls are disproportionately affected, rendering them more vulnerable to violence. The resolution based on the theme prevention through the fulfillment of economic and social and cultural rights highlights the importance of equal enjoyment of these rights for the elimination of violence against all women and girls. It includes important elements on issues such as poverty alleviation and social protection that can positively reduce the risk of violence and prevent occurrence or reoccurrence of violence. It is unfortunate that, despite lengthy negotiations on the text and the inclusive, constructive, and transparent approach taken by Canada, amendments were still tabled. Amendments calling for the deletion of language that is central to the effective and efficient prevention of violence are, in our view, counterproductive. We urge Council members to vote against them. Cyprus supports the resolution as revised by Canada and hopes it can be adopted by consensus. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Japan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Japan expresses its sincere gratitude to Canada for its strong facilitation of this resolution. The elimination of violence against women and girls remains one of the top priorities for the government of Japan. Women and girls, in particular those with disabilities, the elderly, and those living in poverty, are exposed to multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination. Violence against women and girls, including sexual and gender-based violence, is a grave form of such discrimination that seriously impairs women's and girls' ability to enjoy their human rights. Such violence also hinders women's and girls' full, equal, and meaningful participation in decision-making processes and public life. Addressing this issue is essential in building a society wherein all individuals can lead dignified and fulfilling lives. Japan therefore recognizes the high importance of the theme of this year's resolution, the prevention of violence against women and girls through the realization of economic, social, and cultural rights, ESC rights. We welcome the draft resolution's comprehensive treatment of the relationship between the prevention of such violence and ESC rights, including from the perspective of protection. Ensuring full realization of the ESG rights of all women and girls, including through access to education and economic empowerment, is vital for the protection and promotion of women's and girls' human rights, as well as for their protection from violence. We also strongly agree on the importance of promoting the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in relevant decision-making processes. Furthermore, we commend the draft resolution's emphasis on the important role of civil society in efforts to promote gender equality and prevent violence against women and girls, and its emphasis on the participation of men and boys. At this critical juncture of Beijing Plus 30, Japan reaffirms its unwavering dedication to working closely with all stakeholders, including civil society, to create a world free from violence against all people, especially women and girls. Considering these points, with a view to maintaining the spirit and purpose of this main resolution, we strongly hope that the draft presented by Canada will be adopted by consensus without any amendments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Chile.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, President. We are speaking in our national capacity with a serene but firm call. Let us not step backwards. L29, which is being put before us, would deeply change the spirit of this resolution. It would eliminate substantive references to sexual and reproductive rights, and in doing so, it would weaken the pillars that underpin a life free from violence for women and girls. Because when we speak of violence, we speak also of bodies that are controlled by others and decisions that are denied to women. Chile is in favor of building on the basis of our major international agreements and consensus. And let us recall what was agreed upon here in this council, namely that sexual and reproductive rights are not just an ideological issue. It is a matter of dignity. It is a key component of the right to health, and in many contexts, it is the difference between autonomy and subordination. The resolution that we are discussing today is not perfect, but it is a step forwards. It includes approaches that have been worked upon for years and which are evidence-based and have the support of technical bodies and the agency of women themselves. Amendment L28 does not seek to improve or clarify, it seeks to restrict, it seeks to set us back. Let us not forget that this council was established to protect, not just to consider what is possible, but to drive forward what is necessary. And what is necessary today is to maintain our commitment to language that recognizes that violence against women and girls is systemic and intersectional and deeply linked to control over their bodies. That is why Chile will vote against Amendment L28 and respectfully but decisively calls on other members of this council to also reject this amendment. We do so based on our legal conviction, but also on our ethical and humane conviction. Thank you.
Merci. Je donne la parole au
Thank you. I call on the distinguished representative of Benin.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, President. Benin would like to thank Canada for the presentation of L24 Rev 1, which seeks to renew the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls. Since 2016, Benin has made the fight against violence against women and girls a government priority. In particular, in 2021, we adopted a law on repressive measures for tackling sexual-based offenses and in order to protect women in Benin. The same year, we established a National Women's Institute in order to guarantee the flawless implementation of the law, and we had the honor of welcoming the President of the Human Rights Council in Cotonou during his working visit to Benin last May. Also, we spoke before this council a few weeks ago to present the unique model of our institution in Africa. In light of all this, Benin is resolutely in favor of L24, and we call on members of the Council to adopt it by consensus. Thank you.
Distinguished representative of the Marshall Islands.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Republic of the Marshall Islands would like to thank Canada for presenting draft resolution entitled Accelerating Efforts to Eliminate All Forms of Violence Against Women and Girls, Prevention through the Fulfillment of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. The Marshall Islands expresses its support to the renewal of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls and emphasizes it is imperative to address violence against all women and girls, including sexual and gender-based violence. As many experts recalled during the session, girls' rights are human rights, and it has become more important than ever to include them in our discussions and to advocate for their rights. Developing informed governmental policies requires the consideration of the distinct experiences and needs of women and girls. Eradicating gender-based violence requires a whole of society approach and a commitment to truly listen to the voices of survivors and let them guide us in how we can collectively do better in the prevention of gender-based violence. Mentioning girls when talking about full, equal, and meaningful participation is not only consistent with previously agreed language at the UNHRC, but the right of girls to participate in decision-making in all matters that affect their lives is a well-established legal principle that is captured in the Convention of the Rights of the Child, the CEDAW, and other internationally and regionally agreed human rights instruments. It is imperative that this Council pursues the promotion and protection of girls' rights with the same diligence and commitment as those of women. Mr. President, the Marshall Islands urges fellow Council members to vote against all amendments and adopt the draft resolution by consensus. And I thank you.
Thank you. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are program budget implications for this draft proposal. PBI that amounts to $1,162,800 has already been included under the program budget for the relevant years. That means 3 years. A PBI that amounts to $10,000 will need to be added to the budget. We will now take action on each of the amendments one by one in order of submission, and we will then take action on the text as a whole, as amended or not. We will now proceed to take action on Amendment L27. I give the floor to Council members for explanations of votes before the vote on L27. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Spain.
Gracias. Thank you, President. Spain rejects Amendment L27, which seeks to weaken the references to comprehensive sexuality education informed by evidence, which is found in draft resolution L24 Rev 1, as already revised. Comprehensive sexuality education is a key element for the prevention of gender violence, which makes it possible to tackle from an early age its structural causes. It is based on scientific evidence and it is adapted to age and context. Indeed, contents are developed in cooperation with the relevant national authorities. Therefore, it is the commonly recognized language at the international level, recognized by the ministries and by the UN's technical agencies, which strengthens the action-oriented calling of the resolutions of this Council. Moreover, this terminology is not new and has already been included in earlier resolutions of this Council, which were adopted by consensus, such as resolutions 56/22 and 54/16, strengthening their legitimacy as a recognized technical concept and one that is internationally accepted. Removing this reference would be to weaken the prevention of gender-based violence for childhood and adolescence and undermine efforts for putting an end to this scourge. That's why Spain will vote against Amendment L27, and we invite the other members of the Council to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Colombia.
Gracias, señor presidente. Thank you, President. Colombia respectfully but firmly rejects amendment to draft resolution L24 as already revised, which seeks to eliminate or weaken references to comprehensive sexuality integration. This education is based on scientific evidence, and it is a tool that is recognized at the international level as a key component for ensuring the rights to health, education, and gender equality. The approach here is an educational one, not an ideological one, nor is it imposed but rigorous. It is scientifically proven and designed to be age-appropriate and suited to the development of girls, boys, and adolescents. Each stage includes different content that is adapted to the cognitive and emotional stage of maturity of the children. According to the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education, comprehensive sexual education goes beyond the biological or preventive dimension. It fosters critical thinking, empathy, and respect. A revised version of UNESCO, based on more than 70 studies and essays from different contexts, reaffirms that this education leads to later, not earlier, sexual relations and reduces risky behavior. It increases the use of contraceptives and does not entail negative effects in terms of sexual behavior. Moreover, it contributes to preventing gender-based violence by promoting egalitarian behavior and a better understanding of consent from an early age. This is crucial given that 1 in 4 girl adolescents have experienced intimate partner violence. 66% of countries have already included comprehensive sexuality education into their educational systems and adapted them to their cultural realities. Many of these processes are shaped through dialogues with families and teachers who are glad that these issues are addressed with clarity and professionalism, as they are often difficult to address at home. Moreover, these references in this amendment would be to disregard decades of evidence and would weaken a fundamental tool for the prevention of violence, the protection of rights, and the promotion of more healthy and fairer relations. Therefore, Colombia will vote against this amendment, and we invite other members of the Council to reject it and to reaffirm their commitment to evidence-based education and education that is based on human rights and the comprehensive well-being of girls, boys, and adolescents. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests for the floor. At the request of the delegation of Mexico, the Council will now proceed to a recorded vote on L27. I now ask the Secretariat to open the voting machine and ask delegations to register their vote. Have all delegations registered their vote? I request delegations to check whether their vote is accurately reflected on the screen. If so, I ask the Secretariat to close the voting machine. The voting is now closed. The results of the recorded votes are as follows: 13 in favor, 27 against, 6 abstentions. Amendment L27 is therefore rejected. A copy of the results of the votes will shortly be posted on the extranet. We will now proceed to take action on Amendment L28. I give the floor to Council members for explanations of votes before the vote on L28. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Iceland.
Mr. President, Iceland strongly supports draft resolution L24 as orally revised, which focuses on eliminating and preventing all forms of violence against women and girls through the fulfillment of economic, social, and cultural rights. The achievement of sexual and reproductive health relies on the realization of sexual and reproductive rights, which are indivisible and interdependent from other human rights already recognized in national laws and international human rights documents. These include women's and girls' rights to live free from violence, including to not be subjected to sexual violence or harmful practices, such as child early and forced marriage, or FGM, to choose if, when, and with whom to form a family, and to access the education, information, and services necessary to make informed choices about their health and lives. Unfortunately, these rights are often restricted or violated due to discriminatory systems, gender stereotypes, and harmful norms, which fuel gender inequality and perpetuate cycles of poverty and violence. Ending violence against women and girls requires the respect, protection, and fulfillment of sexual and reproductive health and rights. Iceland will therefore vote against Amendment L28, as well as all other amendments presented, and calls on all members of the Council to do the same. I thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other request for the floor. At the request of the delegation of Mexico, the Council will now proceed to a recorded vote on L28. I ask the Secretariat to open the voting machine, and I ask delegations to register their vote. Have all delegations registered their vote? I ask delegations to check whether their vote is accurately reflected on the screen. And if so, I ask the Secretariat to close the voting machine. Voting is now closed. The results of the recorded votes are as follows: 13 in favor, 27 against, 5 abstentions. Amendment L28 is therefore rejected. A copy of the results of the votes will shortly be posted on the extranet. We will now proceed to take action on Amendment L29, and I give the floor to members of the Council for explanations of votes before the vote on L29. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Mexico.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We reject Amendment L29, which seeks to eliminate references to the right to corporal autonomy. Corporal autonomy is a right that protects a person's ability to take decisions about their own body. The ability to say no and to set a border. The respect and protection of this right is the foundation for a life free from violence and discrimination. Since 1995, this right has been reaffirmed in numerous instruments that have been politically negotiated within the Human Rights Council, and the GA, and the Commission of the Legal and Social Condition of Women. When we talk about the prevention of violence and the attainment of economic, social, and cultural rights, the right to corporal autonomy becomes essential. Women and girls living in poverty face greater risks of facing sexual violence. They are at greater risk of being forced to contract child, early, and forced marriage. They can find themselves stuck in abusive family or home environments, and they can be subjected to non-consensual medical procedures or simply not having access to medical care. Against this backdrop, the right to take decisions about their own body, including informed decisions about their sexuality and reproductive options, enables shattering a cycle of violence and guarantee the effective enjoyment of economic, social, and cultural rights. Which is why we believe that Amendment L29 is an attack on the main instrument of the draft resolution L24, and it's as orally revised, which is why we cannot accept it. We will vote no to Amendment L29, and we ask other members of the Council to vote against it as well. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I'll give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Netherlands.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And the word explanation of vote is very appropriate because it allows me, in addition to my colleague of Mexico and others, to explain what bodily autonomy is all about. Respecting bodily autonomy is fundamental to protecting the human rights of every person, including women and girls, and is essential to preventing discrimination and violence, such as female genital mutilation, such as child, early and forced marriage, early or forced pregnancy, and sexual and gender-based violence, all issues where every member of this council is against. Bodily autonomy means the right to make decisions about one's own body, including who may touch it, setting personal boundaries, and making informed medical choices free from violence and coercion. This principle supports rights such as choosing when and whom to marry, deciding on the number and timing of children, and accessing health care, as recognized in international legal instruments like the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights and on the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. Mr. President, bodily autonomy is especially important for women and girls living in poverty, who face higher risks of gender-based violence and may be trapped in abusive situations due to financial dependence, increasing the vulnerability to forced medical procedures and denial of care. And what is important to note is that the Human Rights Council has repeatedly affirmed the right to bodily autonomy in resolutions on violence against women, maternal health, and child marriage. And these commitments, Mr. President, stem from long-standing international consensus, including the 1994 ICPD, the Beijing Platform for Action, and the 2030 Agenda SDGs number 5.6 on sexual and reproductive health and rights. Removing or weakening references to bodily autonomy would work against this resolution's core objective and disregard decades of global commitments. Therefore, it is imperative to maintain explicit recognition of bodily autonomy as a fundamental right central to the prevention of violence and discrimination and the advancement of gender equality. And therefore, Mr. President, the Kingdom of the Netherlands will vote against Amendment L29, which seeks to remove this vital concept from the draft resolution and we call on all members of this Council to do the same. I thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests for the floor. At the request of the delegation of Mexico, the Council will now proceed to a recorded vote on L29. And I ask the Secretariat to open the voting machine and delegations to register their vote. Have all delegations registered their vote? I ask delegations to check whether their vote is accurately reflected on the screen. If so, I ask the Secretariat to close the voting machine. The voting is now closed. The results of the recorded votes are as follows: 13 in favor, 26 against, 7 abstentions. Amendment L29 is therefore rejected. A copy of the results of the votes will be shortly posted on the extranet. The Council will now proceed to take action on draft proposal L24 Ref 1 as orally revised. I will give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make explanations of votes before the vote on L24 Ref 1 as orally revised. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ghana.
Mr. President, we thank Canada for presenting draft resolution L24 Rev 1. Ghana attaches great importance to the welfare of women and girls. Indeed, our affirmative action law and other national policies and the positive consideration we give to fulfilling our international commitments are all geared towards achieving gender equality in line with SDGs Goal 5. We have carefully reviewed draft resolution L24 Rev 1 and support its broad objectives. We, however, wish to make the following comments and observations. Firstly, we wish to encourage the Council to be mindful of the prevailing international consensus, particularly regarding the right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical, mental, sexual, and reproductive health. Secondly, my delegation's understanding of the traditional definition of gender is the male sex or female sex, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences. Similarly, sex in our view refers to either of the two main categories, male and female, into which humans and most other living things are divided and used for statistical purposes and policy monitoring. Additionally, the right to sexual and reproductive health education is grounded in universal human rights, including the right to education and to health, as established in numerous international agreements, such as the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. As a member of the African Union, Ghana has subscribed to sexual and reproductive health education policy commitments, including the 2005 Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, commonly referred to as the Maputo Protocol. Our position, however, on sexuality education is that it must be age-appropriate, culturally sensitive, and in accordance with our national context. Finally, my delegation wishes to stress the agreed principle that implementation of recommendations in resolution is sovereign right of each country, recognizing the need to respect the various religious and ethical values, as well as the cultural backgrounds of people, to ensure conformity with universal recognized international human rights. With that in mind, Ghana is ready to join consensus on the draft resolution. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would like to express our sincere appreciation to Canada for presenting the draft resolution L24 Rev 1 and for conducting transparent and inclusive consultations throughout the process. We acknowledge the penholders' availability and openness to engage on the draft text, which we consider essential for fostering mutual understanding and respect. We particularly thank Canada for taking into account our proposals, notably by including references that shed light on the violence faced by women and girls of African descent, migrants and refugee women and girls, as well as those living in conflict settings and under foreign occupation. We also welcome the reference made to the contribution of the family as the fundamental unit of society in preventing violence against women and girls and protecting their rights. Furthermore, we wish to express our appreciation to the penholder for having taken into consideration the concerns expressed by several delegations and welcome the removal of language on inheritance from the final draft, as it reflects a constructive spirit and commendable respect for the diverse legal, cultural, and religious frameworks of member states. Mr. President, Algeria reaffirms its strong and long-standing commitment to preventing and eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls, including economic violence. In this regard, Algeria has adopted a comprehensive legal framework aimed at addressing violence against women and girls. However, we do regret that once again, consensus on this important initiative remains fragile. Unfortunately, the draft resolution retains many of the controversial language from previous iteration. We would like to recall that language that has been subject to repeated amendments and dissociations over the years cannot be referred to as consensual nor as agreed language. Accordingly, my delegation disassociates itself from preamble paragraph 20, 22, 24, and 25, as well as from operative paragraph I1, paragraph I, and 4K. Algeria reserves the right to interpret and implement the provisions contained in the present resolution in a manner consistent with its national laws and with full respect for religious, ethical, and cultural values of its society, in line with its international human rights obligations. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ethiopia reaffirms this strong commitment to the elimination of all forms of violence against women and girls. We extend our sincere appreciation to Canada for its leadership in tabling this important resolution and for facilitating constructive engagement throughout the negotiation process. We welcome the resolution's comprehensive approach, which rightly underscores the link between the realization of economic, social, cultural rights and the prevention of gender-based violence. We recognize that violence against women and girls is a pervasive form of discrimination that entrenches poverty and inequality. We appreciate the resolution's focus on women's economic empowerment, equal access to resources, decent work, and social protection, which aligns closely with our Ethiopia's national priorities to promote gender equality and inclusive development. We also commend the resolution's emphasis on eliminating discriminatory labor practices, promoting shared parental leave, and addressing labor market segregation, key measures to tackle structural inequalities and the root causes of violence. Moreover, Ethiopia values the attention given to universal social protection, quality education, health care access, and safe infrastructure as critical elements for safeguarding women and girls and ensuring their full enjoyment of human rights. While we acknowledge the progress made during consultations, consensus has not been universally reached on all issues. In this regard, Ethiopia dissociates itself from specific reference to comprehensive sexuality education and certain aspects of reproductive health rights, which requires more deliberations. We emphasize that such matters must be approached in a manner that aligns with our societal values, policy, and legal frameworks. In closing, Mr. President, with these reservations, Ethiopia fully supports the resolution L24 as orally revised and will vote in favor or join consensus on this resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of China.
Mr. President, China categorically rejects all forms of violence against women and girls. China has constructively participated in the consultations on draft resolution L24 and put forward reasonable proposals. Yet the current text fails to fully reflect the international concern on violence against women and girls and disregards the Islamic countries' legitimate concerns on this issue. We hope in the future the main sponsor will improve the text in these aspects. China thanks the main sponsor for convening multiple informal consultations and for accepting some opinions. Yet regrettably, part of the current text contains languages with no consensus. In view of all these, China dissociates itself from the reference in paragraph 14 and 30. Thank you, President.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests for the floor. Is there a request for a vote? I don't see any. May I take it that draft resolution L24 Ref 1 as orally revised may be adopted without a vote? It is so decided. Thank you. The Council will now consider draft proposal L10 entitled The Social Forum. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Cuba.
Presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Cuban delegation, on behalf of the 45 co-sponsoring countries, has the honor of presenting draft resolution L10 entitled The Social Forum. The Social Forum is a space for open, constructive dialogue within the human rights system of the United Nations, which allows for respectfully exchanging views on issues related to economic, social, and cultural rights, including the right to development. It promotes the active participation of a broad range of civil society organizations and representatives, as well as other stakeholders who recognize the Social Forum as the fitting forum to have their voices heard on an equal footing. The Social Forum is not limited to simply exchanging point of views. It is actually designed to promote agreement on specific actions and searching agreed upon solutions to human rights challenges. Mr. President, this time around, the draft resolution proposes that the sessions of the Social Forum for 2026 take on as a topic the contribution of cooperation and international solidarity, including South-South cooperation, to the attainment of the right of all persons to enjoy the highest levels of physical and mental health. International medical cooperation, including bilateral and regional programs, has proven its valuable contribution to the attainment of the right to health for millions of people, not least those of fewer resources or belonging to vulnerable groups living in remote or rural areas. It has been additionally key to caring for the victims of disasters, pandemics, and catastrophes. It is undeniable that it has a contribution to the training of young professionals in the realm of health who are replicating in their countries preventive models based on primary care. In 2026, the Social Forum will provide an opportunity to take stock on the results and potential challenges in the implementation on the pandemics agreement adopted by the World Health Organization. Additionally, it will contribute to the needed debates on public health and quality public health focused on the well-being of human beings and not on capital interests. Lastly, Mr. President, the Cuban delegation will hope that the draft resolution L10 will be adopted by consensus by the Human Rights Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask colleagues to continue their conversation outside the room? Thank you very much. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are 26 additional co-sponsors, and I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make general comments. I don't see. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Colombia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colombia reiterates the importance of the social forum as an opportunity to have an interactive dialogue among human rights mechanisms of the UN and various stakeholders, including the participation of civil society and grassroots organizations, which Colombia believes is essential whenever addressing in a multilateral body any human rights issue. We particularly welcome the decision of devoting the 2026 Social Forum to the contribution of cooperation, including South-South cooperation, to the enjoyment of the right of all persons to the highest possible level of physical and mental health. This is a particularly timely approach given the general context in which unequal access to technologies, medical goods, and health services continue to deepen structural inequalities. To promote cooperation between countries improves our collective abilities and capacities and is a needed step towards health sovereignty. For Colombia, moving towards a fairer global health architecture requires specific mechanisms for knowledge transfer, shared production, and regional work. We reiterate the importance of building strategic alliances that allow for matching up regional value chains, developing interoperational information systems, and addressing health emergencies with more resilience. In this framework, the Social Forum is a unique opportunity to have a dialogue based on results, one in which we actively listen to all voices, particularly those of the Global South, and where we can drive transformative cooperation based on fairness and human rights. We're grateful to the delegation of Cuba for presenting this draft resolution, and we call upon this illustrious council to adopt it by consensus. Thank you.
The floor to the distinguished representative of Bolivia.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Bolivia would like to thank the distinguished delegation of Cuba for the work they have done with this draft resolution. The Social Forum is a mechanism that contributes to the democratization, the inclusion, and the participation within the UN. The nature of the Social Forum enables open dialogue and the exchanges between state representatives, be they members or observers, and civil society, including grassroots organizations and intergovernmental organizations. L10, as a draft, improves the participation and involvement within the Council by taking into account small groups, rural associations, urban associations from the global north and south, farmers, organizations, and their national and international organizations, different types of collective organizations such as youth organizations, community organizations, trade unions, and others, and representatives of the private sector as well. The topics adopted by this council become a concern and common challenges, and this was made clear when we thought about and talked about the contribution of financing for development and the advancement of all human rights. For example, in 2023, we talked about the contribution of science and technology and innovation. In 2022, we talked about water for human rights and sustainable development. And the Social Forum also talked about cooperation and international solidarity from the perspective of human rights. And they have also addressed the challenges in combating poverty and inequality. Now, draft L10 asks for the 2026 Social Forum to focus on the contribution of cooperation and international solidarity, including South-South cooperation to the attainment of the right of all persons to the highest possible enjoyment of the highest possible level of physical and mental health. We reiterate our support to this mechanism. The social forum has proven in practice to be a legitimate space for international forum for cooperation in order to promote the enjoyment of all human rights. That is civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights, including the right to development. For these reasons, Bolivia co-sponsors this draft resolution and asks members of the Council to adopt it by consensus. Thank you.
I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Dominican Republic.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Dominican Republic would like to express its full support to the resolution of the Social Forum presented by the Republic of Cuba. We welcome the renewal of this unique space, which strengthens multi-sectoral dialogue among states, civil society, and community stakeholders in the framework of human rights. In this year, the Social Forum becomes particularly relevant as it focuses on the contribution of international cooperation and solidarity, including South-South cooperation to the right of all persons to the enjoyment of the highest possible level of physical and mental health. We believe that this is a timely and sorely needed approach. The COVID-19 pandemic reminded us all that health is not just a fundamental human right, but also a fundamental foundation for sustainable development, for social cohesion and stability of our societies. Forums such as the social fora are essential to identify collective solutions to share best practices and to improve the health systems from a perspective of rights, fairness, and international solidarity. The active inclusion of grassroots organizations, local communities, and emergent stakeholders from the global North and South enriches the debates and guarantees true representatives of the people on the ground. And for all these reasons, we encourage the Council to adopt this resolution by consensus and to continue to strengthen this forum as it becomes a tool for social transformation that is grounded on human dignity. Thank you.
Thank you. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are program budgetary implications for this draft proposal. The PBIs amount to a total of $127,500. This amount has already been included under the program budget for the relevant years. I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make explanations of votes before the vote on the draft proposal. I don't see any requests for the floor. Is there a request for a vote? I see none. May I take it that draft proposal L10 may be adopted without a vote? It is so decided. Thank you. And I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make explanations of vote after the vote on the resolution adopted under item 5 as we are concluding the debate and decision taking under item 5. Any request for the floor? I don't see any. Thank you. The Council will now consider draft proposal L3 entitled Cooperation with and Assistance to Ukraine in the Field of Human Rights. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ukraine to introduce the draft text.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my honor to introduce under agenda item 10 the draft resolution entitled Cooperation with and Assistance to Ukraine in the Field of Human Rights as contained in the document A/HRC/59/L3. The text continues a series of resolutions first adopted in 2014 at Ukraine's own initiative, which has preceded by the deployment of the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine. While the mission operates under a bilateral agreement with the UNHRC, this resolution ensures that its findings are brought regularly to the Council's attention through interactive dialogues. The changes introduced in the draft are of technical nature, and throughout its long history within this Council, it has never previously triggered PBIs. The core purpose remains unchanged: to maintain the Council's regular consideration of the situation in Ukraine based on impartial, evidence-based reporting. Today, the role of OHCHR and its monitoring mission is more essential than ever. The mission's continued presence across Ukraine has ensured uninterrupted documentation of grave violations of international human rights and humanitarian law stemming from Russia's aggression and temporary occupation. Last update by Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights on increased civilian casualties in Ukraine and dire situation in the temporarily occupied territories reaffirms how vital it is to keep these issues on the agenda of the Council. In addition to its reporting, the OHCHR supports Ukraine in strengthening its national human rights institutions, judicial reform, and victim reparation frameworks. It is an active contributor to Ukraine's recovery plan, and its technical support is helping us to build the foundations for justice and accountability. The resolution is not a symbol gesture, it is a practical tool, one that helps Ukraine protect civilians, respond to complex human rights challenges, and consolidate international cooperation under unprecedented circumstances. We therefore express our sincere hope that this draft submitted by the country concerned and requesting such cooperation will be adopted by consensus. I thank you.
Thank you. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are 2 additional co-sponsors, and I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make general comments. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Spain.
Thank you very much, President. I have once again the honour to speak on behalf of the EU member states that are members of the Human Rights Council to deliver a general comment that has been agreed by the EU as a whole. We thank Ukraine for presenting a solid technical rollover resolution asking for the continued technical cooperation and assistance from the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights in the field of human rights. This resolution underlines Ukraine's commitment to continue upholding its human rights obligations, notwithstanding the enormous challenges it faces amid the ongoing war of aggression by the Russian Federation. We reiterate our resolute condemnation of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, which constitutes a manifest violation of international law, including, inter alia, the UN Charter, and of Russia's continuing violations of international human rights law and humanitarian law in Ukraine. This resolution, despite arguments to the contrary, is about the human rights situation in Ukraine. It is not about targeting any third state. It's about a targeted state seeking cooperation and assistance in the field of human rights. For more than a decade, the UN monitoring mission has contributed to Ukraine's progress in upholding human rights and fostering access to justice within its jurisdiction. It has also supported Ukraine's enhanced cooperation with human rights mechanisms, including UN treaty bodies and special procedures. The continued presence of the monitoring mission is critical to sustain this progress. All this resolution is asking for is the continuation of the High Commissioner's updates on the situation of human rights in Ukraine. It does not mandate the monitoring mission itself or any other mechanism. We call on fellow UN members to support Ukraine's efforts to strengthen the respect for protection and fulfillment of the human rights of all persons, including those belonging to minorities, within its internationally recognized borders. Such effort by the country concerned, seeking cooperation and assistance, should receive the consensual support of the international community. Yet again, some countries choose to undermine it based on false accusations. And if this is to happen, well, we will regret once again that this resolution will be called for a vote. EU member states that are members of this council will vote in favour of the resolution, and we call upon all the other members of this council to do the same. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Japan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Japan would like to express its appreciation to the Permanent Mission of Ukraine for presenting this important draft resolution L3. This draft resolution aims to address the serious human rights violations stemming from Russia's aggression against Ukraine. It also seeks to ensure continued reporting by the HRMMU operating under OHCHR, as well as a sustained engagement of the international community regarding the human rights situation in Ukraine. Japan underlines the critical importance of maintaining the mechanism for the Human Rights Council to regularly receive updates on OHCHR's monitoring and reporting on the ground. We sincerely hope that these efforts will contribute to the realization of a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. We have therefore supported this resolution as a co-sponsor to date, and have once again joined as a co-sponsor of the draft resolution this year. As such, we hope that this resolution will be adopted by consensus. In the event of a vote, Japan will vote in favor of the resolution, and we hope that other members will do the same. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I understand that the Russian Federation does not wish to take the floor as a country concerned. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are program budgetary implications for this draft proposal. The PBIs amount to a total of $30,000. This amount will need to be added to the budget. I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make explanations of votes before the vote on the draft proposal. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of China.
Thank you, President. China has always been objective and equitable on the Ukrainian question. China insists on respect for sovereignty and the territorial integrity of all countries and support for the principles of the UN Charter. The legitimate security concerns of all countries must be taken seriously, and all that is conducive to the peaceful settlement of this crisis should be supported. The Council's work on this topic should be objective, impartial, in favor of dialogue and negotiation. It should help to ease tensions and eradicate the root causes of conflicts. It should not politicize or instrumentalize human rights. China has always supported the efforts by the Council and the High Commissioner to step up technical assistance and capacity building, as well as its constructive role for human rights in affected countries. Unfortunately, the current draft resolution, instead of promoting peace talks, uses technical assistance to put pressure on other sovereign states, which will only exacerbate conflicts and confrontation, and is not conducive to the peaceful settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. In light of all this, China, on behalf of Cuba and China, would like to call for a vote on L3, and we will vote against this draft resolution. China will continue to work with the international community to support technical assistance for human rights and to play a constructive role in the settlement of the crisis and the restoration of lasting peace. Thank you, President.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Brazil.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brazil attaches great importance to initiatives that aim to promote cooperation and technical assistance in the field of human rights. We welcome the assistance currently provided by the Office of the High Commissioner to Ukraine, and we commend the Ukrainian government for its willingness to engage actively and constructively with the international human rights system. As we have expressed on previous occasions in this Council, we recognize Ukraine's legitimate concerns regarding its sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. However, we believe that these matters would be more appropriately addressed in other relevant and competent UN fora, rather than in the Human Rights Council. We believe that as an initiative focused on technical assistance and capacity building, the resolution should refrain from including elements that may contribute to the political instrumentalization of the discussion. For this reason, Brazil will abstain from the vote, as the resolution continues to address matters that fall outside the intended scope of Agenda Item 10. We hope that future initiatives under this item will remain focused on its core mandate, technical assistance and capacity building, so that the text can be adopted by consensus. I thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other request for the floor. At the request of the delegations of China and Cuba, the Council will now proceed to a recorded vote on draft proposal L3. I ask the Secretariat to open the voting machine and ask delegations to register their vote. Have all delegations registered their vote? I ask you to check whether your vote is accurately reflected on the screen. If so, I ask the Secretariat to close the voting machine. The voting is now closed. The results of the recorded votes are as follows: 28 in favor, 2 against, 17 abstentions. Draft proposal L3 is therefore adopted. Copies of the results of the votes will shortly be uploaded on extranet. The Council will now consider draft proposal L19 Rev 1 entitled Enhancing International Cooperation, Technical Assistance and Capacity Building to Strengthen National Frameworks for the Protection and Empowerment of Children in the Digital Space. And I give the floor to the representatives of Saudi Arabia and Vietnam to introduce the draft text.
شكرا سيد الرئيس بالنيابة عن مجموعة.
Thank you, President. On behalf of the regional group comprising Algeria, Azerbaijan, Kuwait, Pakistan, Vietnam, and my country, Saudi Arabia, I have the honor of presenting draft resolution L19 Rev 1, entitled Enhancing International Cooperation, Technical Assistance and Capacity Building to Strengthen National Frameworks for the Protection and Empowerment of Children in the Digital Space. This is a draft resolution that embodies solidarity and knowledge sharing with a view to strengthening digital capacities while at the same time respecting the sovereignty of all states. We would like to thank all stakeholders, including civil society, who contributed to the negotiations on this draft resolution. This has meant that we have achieved a comprehensive and exhaustive text. Sir, my kingdom has worked on the basis of the United Nations Convention on Safety in the Digital Space and the Convention Against Cybercrime. This shows that our kingdom is committed to contributing to international efforts for establishing a safer digital space for children. Allow me to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Vietnam.
Addressing the challenges that children face in the digital space requires effective international cooperation, genuine partnerships among states, and the exchange of expertise and best practices. Providing tailored technical assistance and building national capacities are essential to ensure that states can respond to these challenges according to their national needs and priorities. Draft Resolution L19 Rev 1 underscores the importance of delivering the necessary support to states, strengthening coordination among all relevant stakeholders, and encouraging the sharing of knowledge and experiences to achieve meaningful and sustainable results. Mr. President, this draft embodies the cooperative spirit of item 10 by providing technical support, building capacities, and assisting states in strengthening their national systems to ensure that children worldwide can benefit safely from the digital space. We look forward to the Council's strong support and to the adoption of this resolution by consensus, and we sincerely thank all delegations who have co-sponsored it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are 21 additional co-sponsors. And I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make general comments. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Cuba.
Gracias, señor
Thank you, President. We would like to thank the delegations of Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Azerbaijan, Kuwait, Pakistan, and Vietnam for the presentation of draft resolution L19 Rev 1. With the development of new technologies and the expansion of social networks, the digital space has become a key part of the lives of the vast majority of human beings, including girls and boys. This means that there is a broad spectrum of opportunities, but also challenges which require our attention and awareness raising and coordinated action from the various dimensions of the phenomenon, including the field of human rights protection. We must contribute to creating a healthy and safe digital space for all girls and boys. We would like to thank the sponsor countries for proposing a new initiative that is geared towards international cooperation and which does not limit itself to political statements, but which seeks to achieve action through the creation of capacity building and technical assistance, following on the basis of requests from interested states and in accordance with their national needs and priorities. We consider that this draft resolution should be an example for the development of subsequent initiatives that place the spirit of cooperation and constructive exchange that characterize Agenda Item 10 at its heart, as well as its link with other economic, social, and cultural rights. Therefore, we would like to support the adoption by consensus of draft resolution L19 Rev 1, and we urge the member states of the Council to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Spain.
Thank you, President. I know I keep saying this, and I'm sure you're getting bored, but I have the honor to speak on behalf of the EU member states that are members of the Council. And this is a general comment that has been agreed upon by the EU as a whole. The EU thanks the core group for presenting L19 Rev 1. We appreciate the core group's interest in the protection and empowerment of children in the digital environment. We do, however, believe that the core group could have built on and relied more on the already existing and extensive and relevant work of this Council, of the General Assembly, and of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. In fact, the Committee on the Rights of the Child published in 2021 General Comment 25 on children's rights in relation to the digital environment. Building on this general comment and following a joint EU-GRULAC initiative, the Human Rights Council mandated a full-day meeting, and the General Assembly negotiated and adopted Resolution 78/187 on the same topic. Human Rights Council Resolution 51/10 on countering cyberbullying against children is also relevant. Finally, last year, a resolution on the safety of the child in the digital environment was also adopted by the Human Rights Council. We appreciate that the core group wanted to address this topic from the angle of technical assistance, and we also recognize the choice of the core group for a resource-light resolution in the current context, in particular, given the previously mentioned body of work that already exists. We remain convinced that any Human Rights Council initiative on children should emphasize, above all, the rights of the child and the principles stemming from the Convention on the Rights of the Child, in particular, the child's status as a rights holder. Any such initiative should also emphasize general principles of the same convention, including the best interest of the child, non-discrimination, participation and survival and development of the child, which provide the framework for actions concerning children, including in the digital environment. President, we'd like to thank the core group for their constructive spirit throughout the negotiations and also for their effort to take on board a number of our suggestions. We remain convinced that children should be able to safely exercise all of their rights, both online and offline. It is with this in mind that, with a view to the resolution in front of us, we are pleased to join the consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ethiopia welcomes draft resolution L19 Rev 1 and express appreciation to the core group Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Azerbaijan, Kuwait, Pakistan, and Vietnam for their inclusive and constructive approach throughout the negotiation process. We particularly commend the resolution's focus on strengthening national frameworks through international cooperation and technical assistance, as well as its emphasis on building child-sensitive systems that protect and empower children in the digital environment. Ethiopia also values the resolution's recognition of the growing digital divide and the critical need to support developing countries in bridging this gap, especially in ensuring children's safety online. We are pleased with the resolution's attention to challenges disproportionately affecting girls and the importance of digital literacy, legal frameworks, and multi-stakeholder engagement, including children themselves in shaping safe and inclusive digital spaces. In closing, Ethiopia supports the consensual adoption of this resolution and stands ready to cooperate in collective efforts to advance children's rights and protection in the digital age. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of China.
主席先生，中方
President, China attaches great significance to protection of the rights of the child. On the basis of AI for children, we welcome the role in the mental health of children. Bearing in mind the risks and challenges posed by the generalization of digital technologies for child protection, as well as the difficulties faced by developing countries because of a lack of technology and financial resources, China supports international efforts aimed at protecting children's rights in the digital space. My delegation would like to thank the sponsors of Draft Resolution L19 Rev 1 for having drawn the Council's attention to this important issue and for having actively consulted all parties on this draft resolution. China supports Draft Resolution L19 sponsored by Saudi Arabia, and we will be joining the consensus on it. Thank you, President.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bangladesh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Bangladesh thanks the core group presenting the draft resolution as contained in L19 Rev 1. As we navigate the complexities of rapid digital transformation, we are reminded that the digital space, while offering immense opportunities for learning, connection, and empowerment, also exposes children to evolving and unprecedented risks. From online exploitation, abuse, and cyberbullying to misinformation and harmful content, the threats are multifaceted and demand coordinated, rights-based response at local, national, and global levels. Bangladesh underscores that bridging digital divides must go hand in hand with protecting our children's safety, privacy, and mental well-being online. We commend the resolution's recognition that many developing countries continue to face significant capacity gaps, resource constraints, and challenges in ensuring safe and equitable digital access for children. The clear emphasis on international cooperation, technology transfer, sharing of good practices, and building institutional capacities is therefore crucial and timely. We particularly welcome the resolution's focus on empowering children themselves, along with parents, teachers, and caregivers by strengthening digital literacy, awareness, and reporting mechanisms. Developing the evolving capacities of children and equipping them with the knowledge and tools to navigate the digital world safely is a key investment in our future. Bangladesh further appreciates the resolution's call for multi-stakeholder partnerships, bringing together states, the UN system, and national human rights institutions, civil society, academia, and the private sector. Our experience has shown that protecting children in digital settings requires a whole of society approach anchored in shared responsibility. In Bangladesh, we are taking concrete steps to strengthen child protection frameworks in the digital context, including through the development of online safety policies, digital skills programs, and child-friendly reporting systems. We stand ready to share our experience and to learn from others. In closing, Bangladesh reiterates its strong commitment to advancing technical assistance and capacity buildings to ensure that our children can enjoy the full benefits of the digital age in a safe, secure, and empowering environment. Bangladesh supports the draft text in its current form and requests the member of the Council to adopt the resolution by consensus. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Qatar.
Okay. شكرا السيد الرئيس.
Thank you, President. I have the pleasure of speaking on draft resolution L19 Rev 1 entitled Enhancing International Cooperation to Protect and Empower Children in the Digital Space. We support this draft resolution and would like to express our gratitude to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the entire core group for the efforts they made in the negotiations process. Our comments were taken into account with the result of having a balanced text. We considered that the digital space is now a reality for children. It is a space which provides opportunities as it does challenges, and therefore this calls for us to face these new responsibilities that we must all shoulder, and that's why there is a need to provide technical assistance and capacity building in order to better protect children. We support all capacity building and technical assistance aimed at developing national frameworks that will enable us to exchange experiences and establish programs that go hand in hand with the priorities of each country. We support draft resolution L19 and call on all members of the Council to adopt this draft resolution by consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Kuwait.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. تتقدم.
Thank you, President. The countries of the Arab Gulf would like to thank the group for presenting draft resolution L19 Rev 1 on enhancing international cooperation, technical assistance, and capacity building to strengthen national frameworks for the protection and empowerment of children in the digital space. This is an essential part of children's lives. It is a source of information for education, but of course it also entails growing risks which require greater international cooperation and greater capacity building at the national level in order to ensure a healthy and safe, inclusive environment for children. In this context, the Gulf Cooperation Council states, welcome the fact that an emphasis is placed on capacity building in accordance with the specific needs of countries. And we also underscore the importance of the exchange of experiences and best practices between countries and how this can contribute to strengthening national frameworks aimed at protecting children. On this basis, President, the Gulf Council Coordination States would like to emphasize the fact that we wish for this draft resolution to be adopted by consensus, and we invite members of the Council to participate in a constructive way to the successful implementation of this draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sudan.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, we would like to thank the countries that have presented this draft resolution, which takes on a key topic that entails the many risks that children face. Digital technology has brought a great deal of ease to our daily lives, but concomitant with this ease, there are risks such as digital harassment and online harassment. This draft speaks about the importance of capacity building and exchanging knowledge, mainly in combating online crime. Hence, the importance of facilitating access to digital technologies, but paying attention to children's needs. We encourage adopting the document by consensus without moving to a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Algeria.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a member of the core group of the draft resolution L19 Rev 1, my delegation would like to express its full support to this initiative as part of our ongoing commitment to promote and protect the rights of the child, including online. Algeria has taken on several institutional and educational and regulatory measures allowing the protection of children, as well as documents to combat cybercrime, are a strong legal foundation to attack and repress harassment of children online. Institutionally, the appointment of a national delegate to the protection of children is proof of the authorities' willingness to have ongoing monitoring. Additionally, awareness-raising campaigns nationwide have been launched, namely through a digital platform devoted to awareness raising among families and children on risks related to the use of digital technologies. Algeria was also honored to chair the intergovernmental process that led to the adoption by the General Assembly of the United Nations on the Convention to Combat Cybercrime, a historical document which is a significant step in international cooperation and the protection of users of the internet, namely children. Chair convinced that the protection of children online is a shared responsibility. The core group has sought to present a short, well-balanced text that focuses on what is essential: international cooperation and national capacity building in the protection and optimization of children in the digital realm. On purpose, we refrained from any ideological consideration that might divide the Council in order to bring delegations around this important topic, which is a significant challenge for developing countries particularly. We would like to thank all delegations for their constructive participation throughout the negotiation process, and we would also like to thank those who have already co-sponsored it. My delegation asks that the Council adopt L19 Rev 1 by consensus. Thank you.
I have been informed by the Secretariat that there are no program budgetary implications for this draft proposal. I now give the floor to members of the Council who wish to make explanations of votes before the vote on the draft proposal. I don't see any. Is there a request for a vote? I see none. May I take it that draft proposal L19 Ref 1 may be adopted without a vote? It is so decided. Thank you. Excellence, distingués collègues.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, thanks to the outstanding efficiency of this Council, we have come to the end of the meeting. We will meet again this afternoon at 1500 hours for the consideration of draft resolutions and decisions. This brings an end to the 33rd meeting of the 59th session of the Human Rights Council. Thank you. Enjoy your meal.
you.